Hello and welcome to HiveState Bakugan. Today we're going to be doing another custom. This time it is a Trox for the one and only RxxC. I actually, whenever I was doing this one, I forgot to shoot an intro. It's kind of why I'm just explaining now while you're seeing me paint. What this first little layer is it's just a brush-on primer. Now, with a lot of Bakugan things, the reason we use primer, or any miniatures or models at all, actually, the primer basically allows the acrylic that you're using, or whatever type of paint you're using, to stick to the plastic better. And, well, though some hiccups happened throughout this, it definitely does help. If you don't use it, I've noticed that the paint almost likes to pool, I think is the right term. It'll kind of, whenever it goes on, it'll just bubble up in the center of where you're actually trying to paint, instead of spreading out where you actually put it. So this helps with that step quite a bit. Whenever I was filming this, I rolled it up to get all the parts, because Bakugan have moving pieces, and, well, Trox is no exception. And you see, whenever I folded it up to get all the parts, I realized something. Whenever unfolding it, this one has, well, it has some spots that the paint scraped away. At this point, I was still bright and hopeful that this would end up fixing itself, but we'll see how that goes. The next step is black. This is really just blocking in colors. One of the first things I like to do with most pieces is putting down specific colors so I know what and where's going what, especially with a piece like this, because I had the idea of what I wanted to do, but it's not like some of the miniatures I've done where I knew exactly how to do what I'm doing. This one had a bit of wiggle room. This next color is, technically this was an experiment. This is the Turbo Dork brand Red Rum paint. I have come to very much like this brand. Their paints are so unique. Some of them can like change shade. Some of them are just super metallic and shiny and vibrant, and they're interesting. They go best over black, I've found, and, well, the piece that I experimented on to kind of teach myself some of these paints was a Dragonoid, just a Dragonoid core. I think that one's going to go up on the Patreon, which I don't really talk about. There's nothing really on there at the current moment. But it's literally just me testing out a couple different methods. That video will be up soon. But what I'm doing here now is clean up. Since I put in some of the red, I wanted to go back with the black and clean up the line work just a little bit. With some of the undercolors you use, it's a lot easier to fix things later and then just kind of like lightly clean up. That was a test. I don't know if you noticed, but what I did is I painted over a varnish and then checked to see if the black would scrape away after it's been varnished. And though I didn't show it, you can see it. The green on the back of the neck is where the plastic scrapes away what I'm painting. And at this point I was starting to get a little bit worried on that, but I was still hopeful. I was still optimistic. And again, we'll see how that goes. See, now we're, I believe, still just blocking in the gray and cleaning up some more of that red, making the green a little less visible in some places. Yeah. You'll notice a lot of jump cuts between little sections, and there is time between normally any time I sit down the Trox, because paint does take a little bit to dry, some less than others, some more. but here's just more of me cleaning up the grays. This is moving into Nuln Oil. Nuln Oil is a miracle paint. It's a wash, and it's fantastic for things like this. If you notice, I'm putting it over everything. All of the gray that I just painted in, I am smudging with this. It's kind of a black, but not really. It's an oilish. I would almost consider it a super dark brown. But it makes it dirty, and it makes it look nice. Then you can go back, and this is the exact same color, although it looks lighter. This is the color that I've been using, and I'm just re-brightening up what I just dulled down. And this can make really good highlights, especially once you add a hint of a brighter color after, because the dark gets in the recess, the mid-tones is there, and then the bright comes on the highlights. It's an easy technique to use, and it can really make simple paint jobs look pretty good. There was a point here where I did not like some of the things I noticed. For an example, you'll see that I just pointed to some of the things that didn't show. And then I'm using glue. This is because I talked with RxxC's, and we decided that it's going to be okay if I just make this into a display piece. So I decided to glue all the joints shut and glue them to a display base. So that way, I mean, he cannot be used in the game anymore. But this will make it to where once I paint over all of the spots that scrape away, well, I mean, he's locked in place. He's not going to scrape them away anymore. He's just going to stand there for the rest of his days. This is a lot of just cleanup work right now. Fixing what broke. Now, I decided to do the claws and the feet bits in this almost it's a brownish, a light shade of brown. Because I wanted some organic to still show through, even though the majority of it is the metal plating and the under. I wanted the teeth and the claws and all that to have just a hint of this thing's alive to it. So I started with it, and then I cleaned up over top of it, adding more black and red to give a little more of a pop other than just on the legs and the eyes. And I think that was a good decision. Then I go back and I do a little bit of edge highlighting. This isn't something I'm the best at, but practice makes perfect. I'm going over pretty much every bit of the black with this gray. I started with the dark gray, didn't care for it too much, and then shifted over to this light gray. And truly, it's just to make the black kind of pop. It brings out to where you can see the detail of all the different panels and stuff that's on this Trox, and I think it really helps the black stand out. Okay, now I'm going over with a lighter gray, like I was talking about earlier, where I washed it and then brought it back with the normal gray. This is, well, both me fixing some of the things that I missed and highlighting some of the things that I didn't to clean it up all nice and good. Normally, whenever you're doing a display piece, something that I've found, especially for, we'll say, tabletop war games, things along that line, you want to do the most work and details on the higher parts of the model because it brings attention where you want it to. The feet aren't normally the first thing you look at. Now this I just showed white. I am not painting pure white. I did not show the other bottle because I just showed it. I'm using this as a mixture with the gray that I've been using to create a lighter gray because I couldn't find the one I normally use. And this is just making even more of a highlight on these silver gray scale parts of the Trox. And I believe next I do come in with a silver. This is Stormhost silver. A lot of the stuff I use is Vallejo brand, but man, some of these metallics, I really like Stormhost from Citadel. It goes on so smooth and it doesn't look too clumpy. It's such a good metallic. And this is mostly just hitting the high points where light would be shining. It didn't need to go over everything, just enough to give it a pop. I believe on some parts, on top of the silver, I even go back and add a little bit of white, and that's what I'm doing right here, just to show the very, very highest of the shine, because that's what it would be. Egrix Earthshade, it's another wash that I need to go buy more of, and this is just for the little bone talon pieces, or whatever you want to name them, just to dirty it up. This Bakugan, this I decided to glue to the base, because I had an idea and I wanted to roll with it. What I didn't think about was that since Trox was already on the base, it was extremely hard to cut. So he ended up popping off the base while I was cutting him, and I ended up getting the metal in the core cut away, but it did kind of mess up the core a bit. I just coated the base in brown, and now I'm moving into a texture paint. You'll see this goes on, and it almost immediately looks like mud. It's such a fun texture to work with. And I love it for grass bases, because grass isn't perfect. Once it dried, before I even go into the grass, I'm lightening up the dirt, because, I mean, dirt's under grass, that makes sense. And then I lighten it up a little bit more with cork brown. And then we're using intermediate green. This step looks terrible when you first start doing it. But what you're doing really is making an undercoat for what you're about to do. You're blocking in the places with paint that you're getting ready to add, well, you'll see, glue. But first I'm going to glue it to the secondary base. That way it's two bases. I have a little glue brush that I like to smear around both Elmer's and the better glue. This paint, Black 3.0. This was actually kind of an experiment. It's a paint that I kickstarted because it's, quote, the blackest black ever made. I realized it didn't just go onto the black base well, so I had to prime the base too. But all in all, I kind of like the way it turned out. It took a couple coats, so here's the first of a few, and I do believe I did a couple off camera. But it goes on super chunky. It's a weird paint, and I need a lot more work with it. But after some time, there's another coat, and I think it's getting ready to jump, and, well, you'll see what it goes to. And there. That's no camera trick. That is just this paint dried. It absorbs so much light, it kind of gets rid of a lot of details. So you'll see I put glue in the little plastic thing, and I'm spreading glue around the base. That's because I'm getting ready to use something called static grass. And you'll see I'm putting it over everything that I just painted green and around the Baku core, and a little bit up onto the dirt. I'm using it, well, pretty liberally. And this, I just pinch on with a little plastic pair of tweezers that I have. They've served me well through the years. Tap it off and let it dry, and then this is actually a little camera cleaner, but I like using it to blow off all of the excess grass bits, and it even has a little dust feature, so it can dust while it blows. And then I used his logo. That was basically just me eyeballing it, sketching it, cutting it out on cardstock, painting it, or priming it, painting it, and then gluing it down. And it ended up giving the effect that I wanted. However, it did need a little something after, so I painted the edges black. And that's kind of, well, that's the way that turned out. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. There should also be a video on RxxC's channel that I will put a little card for, so make sure to go watch that as well if you haven't already, although I'm assuming you came here from there. So, I hope you enjoyed. I am currently running a contest, and I do need to go ahead and mention it. If we can reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the current set reviews that I'm doing has been posted, I'm going to, well, custom paint a Bakugan and give it to one of you all. I do hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, stick around, but whether you do or whether you don't, well, you'll see me when you see me.